There's a great question in goal setting and personal success I wanted to start off with. And the question is, what one great thing would you dare to dream if you knew you could not fail? Now that's a great question. If you were absolutely guaranteed a success in any goal, big or small, short or long term, if you could wave a magic wand, take a pill, but you'd be absolutely guaranteed, what one goal would you set for yourself? And when you ask that question, usually big goals come into your mind. You'd be rich, you'd be famous, you'd be powerful. But when you ask the question, what happens is you start to realize that it is fear that holds us back more than anything else. Because if you were absolutely guaranteed a success, you'd be unstoppable. I mean, you would be a force of nature. If someone were to put a blessing on you and say that you are indestructible and you could accomplish any goal you ever set for yourself, what different things would you do? Now, when I started off, I came from a poor family. I say I came by my feelings of guilt and unworthiness, honestly, because I was raised by a Catholic mother. And I grew up with no self-confidence, no self-esteem. I was kicked out of school several times. I misbehaved. I ended up spending half of my school in the library because I was kicked out of courses. I left school in the 12th grade and got a job as a dishwasher, worked as a laborer, lived in my car, dug ditches and things like that. So I had no self-esteem. And I began studying the subject over the years, and I found that your level of self-confidence, how much confidence you have in yourself to do, accomplish something, really determines the whole quality of your life. So what I found is that there's a direct relationship between how high your level of self-confidence is and your level of sales. One-to-one relationship between self-confidence and selling success. Because in selling, you've got to be bold, you've got to be courageous, you've got to take rejection and disappointment, you've got to get out there, you've got to face all your fears in order to get appointments, you've got to face your fears in order to ask for orders. So self-confidence is critical. Self-confidence is essential in business because it's impossible to even start a business, to arrange a bank loan, to set up customers, to hire people, to do all the things that are necessary in business require self-confidence. Also, what we have found is that your level of self-confidence is the critical factor in your level of sex appeal. Is that the more confident you are, the more appealing you are to other people. The more confident you are, actually the more magnetism you have. That's why actors and actresses who seem to be extremely confident have a certain amount of magnetism. So confidence not only is really important for us, it makes us feel happy, it affects and empowers other people, it causes people to treat us differently, we make more sales, we make more money, we marry better, we're better and more effective socially. Self-confidence is everything. And so I began studying when my confidence was very, very low, and I began looking at the subject of self-confidence. I find that there's three factors that interfere with our self-confidence. Number one factor is doubt and fear. Doubt and fear. This is really the greatest problem that human beings have. Throughout all of history, throughout all the books of religion and spiritual works and philosophy and psychology, fear and doubt and fear hold us back more than anything else. And then second of all, it's feelings of guilt and unworthiness. Feelings of guilt and unworthiness. And these are universal. And then finally, number three, is we have feelings of inferiority and undeservingness. It's absolutely amazing. They've done lots of work with AIDS patients, and they find that some people who have AIDS live for years and years and years, and some die. And they found that the critical thing is the feeling of worthlessness. Is people come down with the disease and they feel that there's something wrong with them and they lose their heart. Viktor Frankl, when he was in the Nazi death camps at Auschwitz, said as long as people believed in something, they stayed alive. As soon as they stopped believing, they just died. And so we all have these feelings. In fact, a feeling of undeservingness is one of the dirty little secrets that we have with regard to success. As you've heard the old expression, fear of success. It's no such thing as fear of success. It's just a pop suggestion. It's feelings of undeservingness. We don't feel like we're worth it. And so people who unconsciously don't feel that they're worth very much, they will work very hard on the outside to achieve success, and then they'll sabotage themselves. So these are the big three. And where do doubts and fears come from? Where does guilt and unworthiness come from? Imagine if you had no doubt at all. completely self-confident, no fears at all, is if you felt fabulous about yourself and your ability to accomplish things. If you felt like you deserved all good things in the world, think how much different you would be. And then you look at people who are really successful and happy, and that's the way they are. And as it happens, nobody starts out that way. So I began studying this, and this is really what got me going, and I have now been teaching for 25 years, but I began with these very principles we're talking about today. So what we know is that all habits, including emotional habits, are learned. And this is an interesting concept that came about studying the works of Uspensky, who wrote at the turn of the last century. But emotional habits, or ways of feeling, ways of responding emotionally, are all learned. They are not fixed. They're almost like vagrant emotions. They have no home in the subconscious. If they were fixed, and certain phobias and certain mental illness is fixed, if they were fixed, they're locked in, you can't get them out. But as it happens, 99.9% of our emotional responses, especially negative ones, are actually unlearnable. You can actually defuse them. You can actually pull the wires that keep them functioning and get rid of them. And if you couldn't get rid of them, of course, you could never improve. But the very fact that you can get rid of them means that you could accomplish anything. So I began studying success. I got into sales. How many people here are in sales? Yeah. Well, that's what I got into when I couldn't get a laboring job as well. So I got into sales, and I spun my wheels, and I finally began asking the question, why is it that some salespeople are more successful than others? What I learned, which turned my life around, which you've heard before, is the law of cause and effect. Now, the law of cause and effect says that for every effect in your life, for everything that's going on, there's a cause. That we live in a universe that is governed by law. This is often called the iron law of the universe, the iron law of human destiny, because it says that everything that is happening to you is happening for a reason. So the law of cause and effect says that if you can be clear about an effect that you desire, you can trace it back, and by finding someone else who's gotten that effect, if you do the same things that they do over and over again, you'll get the same result. Well, the great practice, or the great application of the law of cause and effect, which has been the foundation principle of human society, psychology, religion, philosophy, metaphysics, and so on, is that thoughts are causes. Thoughts are causes. And conditions are effects. And this is an extraordinary, extraordinary breakthrough. Because most people believe, falsely, that their situation in life is determined by factors outside of themselves. And I'll come back to this later because it's very important. Whereas the fact is that our thoughts, which are the only thing that we control, and which we do control, determine everything that happens to us in life. They determine the quality of our life, the quality of our relationships, the quality of our health, how long we live, how much money we earn, the home we live in, the friends and social relationships we have, our level of happiness and self-confidence. Thoughts are causes and conditions are effects. And over the last 5,000 years, a series of mental laws have been discovered. In fact, back before the time of Christ, there were what were called mystery schools. And mystery schools were schools of people who would withdraw to the mountains, and they would study for years. And over the course of the years, they would be taught these principles. Today, the great findings of the mystery schools are available to us as simple as gumdrops and newspapers. But 99.9% of people have not discovered them. So I want to give you some of the discoveries in the mystery schools, which many people today are rediscovering and going, whoa, it's like a teenager discovering sex. I mean, wow. Never seen it before. So the second law discovered in the mystery schools was the law of belief. The law of belief has a great cultural heritage. It's the foundation of virtually all religions and all philosophies. And it basically says this, is whatever you believe with feeling becomes your reality. Whatever you believe with feeling becomes your reality. If you strongly believe it, your mind actually sorts out and creates almost a strainer effect, and you see the world through what is called a screen of beliefs. You do not see the world as it is, as the writer Aeneas Nin once said, you see the world as you are. And you actually deliberately ignore things that are inconsistent with your beliefs. And you only see things that are consistent with your beliefs. So therefore, the law of belief is very powerful. Now, here's the great tragedy, is some people have beliefs, and we don't need to go into geopolitics, but some people have beliefs that are, first of all, not based on reality. They are based on completely false information, which they're passionately attached to, and which are life-destroying as opposed to life-enhancing. I don't pass judgment on anybody's belief, but the way you could pass judgment on your own beliefs is, does it make you happy, and does it enhance the quality of your life and your relationships? I'll give you an example. When I had my first child many years ago, one of the child psychology books about raising children said, the role of the parent is to break the will of the child at an early age. And as it happened, that was a common teaching in the 20s, 30s, 40s, even into the 50s, is that children, if they're too willful, will not respond well to instructions from their parents, so the parent's job is to break the will of the child. Well, you can imagine, we have a lot of grown people in our society who were raised by parents with that idea. And they're broken people. They're angry, they're drunk, they're alcoholic, they're overweight, they're frustrated, and so on and so forth, because at a very early age, like young colts, they were broken. So the law of belief says that we act based on our beliefs, even though we have self-limiting beliefs. Now here's a very interesting point, is that no one's born with any beliefs. Every belief you have about yourself, your potential, the world, religion, politics, people, anything, every belief you had to be taught meticulously with very careful instruction, repeated over and over again. The worst of all beliefs are self-limiting beliefs. Now, self-limiting beliefs are beliefs where you believe yourself to be limited in some way. And so the starting point of using the law of belief on your behalf is, first of all, you ask yourself, what beliefs would it be useful or helpful to me to have? And imagine that you could go to the belief store and buy a belief, like a piece of software, and program it into your hard drive so it became part of your operating system. But you could only choose one belief. What would be a good belief to buy? Do all things you think about and want to do. That's that you can do all things that you think about and want to do. That's almost dead on, sir. You may go now. Well, a friend of mine spent 18 years studying the biographies of more than 500 men and women who had started with nothing and became successful. And he was looking for the common denominator of success, and he found it. He found that every single one of these people throughout their lives absolutely believed that they were going to be a big success. They absolutely believed they were going to be a big success when they grew up, and no matter what happened to them in their adult lives, and they never lost sight of that. Like the three wise men following the star, they felt that everything that happened was part of the process. Every setback was a lesson. Every pain was something sent to teach them something that would be helpful, and they never stopped believing in themselves. So if you could buy one belief, the belief is this, is that you are destined to be a big success, that you have incredible potential, that you're surrounded by incredible opportunities, and that you're going to be a huge success in life, and everything that's happened up to now is part of your preparation. So challenge yourself limiting beliefs. Don't ever say, I can't do that, or I'm not good at that, or something else. No, wait and say, wait, what if that's totally false? What if deep down inside of you have the ability to be extraordinary at something that's important to you? Whether it's skiing or skydiving or mathematics or selling or earning money or running a business. You probably have more ability than you could dream of, but don't sell yourself short. Now in the Bible it says, according to your faith it is done unto you. It's one of the most important principles of the New Testament. In the Old Testament it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, and the heart stands for the subconscious mind, which means a deep belief, so is he, or so is she. William James says, beliefs create the actual fact. Is that if you have the belief, it actually becomes the fact, because you always act in a manner consistent with the belief, and as a result, you get the results consistent with your actions. And you can control your beliefs. Is it easy to change your beliefs, especially old negative? No, it's not easy. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it easy to lose weight? No. Is it possible? Of course it is. Now, the number 3 law is called the law of expectation. Now, the law of expectation, there's an entire field in economics called expectations theory. There's an entire field in psychology called expectations theory. Your expectations largely determine the quality of your life in this sense, is that whatever you expect with confidence becomes your self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever you expect with confidence becomes your own self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, you are always telling your future by the way you talk about how you think things are going to turn out. You are like a fortune teller in your own life. And if you believe that things are going to turn out well, if you expect them to turn out well, then by gum, they do. If you believe that you're going to be popular and that people are going to buy and that you have a great product and a great company and you're going to have a great life and you're going to be accepted and well received by people, and then you act that way. So it's very, very important that you always expect the best. And this is the key: expect the best. Expect the best. Expect the best of yourself, expect the best of other people, but especially expect the best of people who look up to you. One of the discoveries at Harvard University is that there's 2 qualities of child raising that raise happy, healthy kids. 2 qualities, by the way, that raise happy, healthy, powerful business teams as well, and sales teams. Number 1 is a democratic environment. A democratic environment is where everybody is welcome to express their opinions, and people discuss and debate and get feedback and so on and so forth, and they make their decisions based on consensus. So everybody feels valuable and important and respected. That's number 1. For kids, it's phenomenal. Ever since my kids have been little, I always ask for their opinion. What would you like to do? Where would you like to go? Now as they grow up, we take turns. Where would you like to go for dinner? Where would you like to go? And so on. And the kids decide. And now, when they're adults, they feel that their opinion is valid. When they meet with other adults, they feel that their opinion is valid because they've been trained all their lives that their opinion is worth something. So number 1 is a democratic environment. Number 2 is a climate of positive expectations. Is the parents expect their kids to do well. Just like I tell my kids, you're going to be a very successful person when you grow up. You're going to do extremely well. You're going to be very popular. You're going to get good grades. When you expect the best of your children, children rise to your expectations. They may argue with you, they may reject, they may discount your positive statements because you're a parent, but it affects them at an unconscious level. I remember reading a wonderful line from a journalist. He said, "My father was not very talkative," he said. "He was a good man, but he didn't talk very much. But I do remember him saying one thing which affected my whole life. He said, 'Son, I expect you to do something worthwhile with your life when you grow up.'" He said, I still remember that because whenever it came up, he'd say, "Son, whatever you do, I expect you to do something worthwhile with your life when you grow up." He said, that rang in my mind all my life. He said, I've striven all my life to do something worthwhile with my life, just because of the positive expectations. So it's really important. Telling people that you expect the best of them. If you're married, telling your spouse that you believe in them and that you expect the best and you believe they'll be successful, and if they're not successful, then they'll learn something, they'll be successful next time. Repeating that over and over again is the greatest blessing that a person can have. Okay, so expect the best. Expect the best of other people, expect the best of yourself too. Okay. Now the fourth law is the law of attraction. Now the law of attraction is getting, a lot of traction today, a lot of buzz. The law of attraction has been around. It was discovered, first written about 3,000 years before Christ. The law of attraction is a very interesting law that combines with the other laws, but it says that each person is a living magnet. Now, along with the law of attraction, there's a couple of other laws. One is called the law of vibration. And the law of vibration, as you know, everything in the physical universe is in vibration, even thoughts. Now, what causes a thought to vibrate is the emotional component of the thought. A thought with no emotion just lies there. An emotion with no thinking is just out of control, like a random molecule. But a thought which is impelled by an emotion sets up a force field of energy that attracts into your life people, ideas, and resources necessary to achieve the thought. And the more powerful the emotion, the faster it comes into action. Now, the interesting thing is all these laws are neutral. If you believe negative things, then that's what you will see, that's what you'll perceive, that's what you'll experience. If you expect negative things to happen, that's what will happen as well. So don't talk about things you don't want, because your mind is so powerful. It's this powerful engine that is sending out vibrations and attracting into your life people and circumstances in harmony with the things you're saying and the thoughts that you're thinking. If you're thinking negative thoughts, you're attracting those things into your life. Car crashes and burglaries and broken dishes and ripped hose and all kinds of things happen if you think negatively. So we say that you are a living magnet. Now there's a second law. It's called the law of sympathetic resonance. Now let me give you an example of the law of sympathetic resonance which affects your life. If you had two pianos in a large room, and you went over and you hit the note of C sharp on this piano, bang, and you walked across the room to the other piano, the string of C sharp would be vibrating in perfect harmony with the string vibrating on the piano that you struck. Are you with me so far? Why? It's called sympathetic resonance. Now, where is sympathetic resonance especially relevant? Is when we meet the right person for ourselves. Khalil Gibran says that there will be a moment of a recognition at the moment of meeting, instantaneous. You walked into a place and you saw the person and your eyes met across a crowded room. It was instantaneous. Well, it's the same thing. The law of attraction is a very interesting law, but it says that whatever thoughts you're thinking, positive or negative, are sending out this force field of energy that's attracting into your life people and circumstances in harmony with it. Now, thought energy is a very fine energy. If you were talking about throwing bullets or basketballs, you couldn't get them through the wall. But thought energy travels at 186,000 miles a second, like the speed of light, and it can literally go across the world instantaneously and through all substances. I'll give you an example of the law of attraction that you've experienced many times. You're talking to your friend about somebody else and the phone rings and it's them. You ever had that happen? And you say, we were just talking about you. And the other person says, well, I just had this impulse to phone you. This happens throughout your life. If it happened once or twice, you could say, well, that's an interesting coincidence. But if it happens repeatedly throughout your life, then you know that there's a law at work. So how do you use the law of sympathetic resonance, the law of attraction? It's very simple. You keep your mind on what you want. And you think about what you want in very positive terms. You think about things that make you happy. You think about people that you love, and you think about success experiences. Interesting difference between winners and losers. Can you guess? Prior to every sales call or experience, both of them visualize and recall a memory. But winners recall their previous success experience and how happy they were about that. And non-winners recall their previous unhappy experience and how bad they felt and how depressed they felt and how unsuccessful and so on. So winners think of their past success experience and they set up a force field of energy that largely creates that experience. Sometimes when you walk into a room, if you are really up, people will turn their head. I mean, the vibrations will hit them, they'll turn their head, they'll notice that you've come into the room. So this is very much determined by the thoughts that you're thinking. We'll talk about this as we go along. So the law of attraction says you're constantly attracting into your life people, circumstances, ideas, resources in harmony with your dominant thoughts, but it is a neutral law. Nature is neutral in this sense. If you think negative thoughts and worried thoughts and anxious thoughts and angry thoughts, that's what you attract into your life. And so it's really important that you be aware of that. Okay, the next law is called the law, I've written these down here. There's actually 32, well, it's one of my favorite. It's called the law of correspondence. I love this one. It's kind of a summary law in many ways, and it has an equation, and the equation is this. This is my favorite equation. Remember this for the rest of your life. The law of correspondence, which is talked about in the New Testament, the Old Testament, and many of the old books, simply says, as within, so without. As within, so without. What it says is that your entire world around you is a mirror that reflects back to you your dominant thoughts. We say wherever you look, there you are. It's almost like you live in a 360-degree mirror. And wherever you look, you see yourself reflected back. Now, the 3 or 4 places where this is most common is, first of all, your relationships. Now, remember, human beings are extraordinarily sensitive, so that if you have negative thoughts going on about anything, you affect the relationships close to you instantaneously. They'll pick it up across a crowded room. Women, by the way, are far better at this than men. Men are kind of like blocks of cheese, but women are like high-tech computers. If you ever had an experience, every man's had an experience, they phone home, they say, hi. She says, what's wrong? That's all you've said is hi or hello. She said, what's wrong? Is it your boss again? How did you know? A woman can pick it up with a single word. You can walk in the door and say hi, and she'll just go, instantly, she'll just read it. With regard to relationships, your relationships almost instantaneously will show you what's going on inside your own thoughts. If you're feeling happy, your relationships will reflect it immediately. If you're unhappy or angry for some reason, they will reflect it immediately. A second area, by the way, has to do with income. Is your outer world of income will be determined by your inner world of attitude toward money, earning, productivity, performance, and everything else. With regard to your health, your inner world of attitude toward health, food, diet, fitness, everything else determines your external world of health. And so, and also to success. If you believe that you're going to be a big success, if you believe it on the inside, then you'll see it, it'll be reflected back to you in your outer world. Remember, most people look at a mirror, if they don't like what's in the mirror, they bang and pound the mirror. But intelligent people realize that whatever they see in their outer world is coming from themselves. So they always ask this great question, is what is it in me? What is it in me that is causing what's going on in my environment? Now this is the question of the superior person. The average person always tries to blame something in their external environment or someone, past, present, future. So the next law is called the law of subconscious activity. Now the law of subconscious activity, and there's all kinds of stuff that is written for popular reading. The law of subconscious activity basically says that your subconscious mind functions automatically. It is like clay. It takes the imprint of your conscious thoughts, and then it makes all your words and actions consistent with your previous programming. It makes your words and actions consistent with what you've put in the past. So it does not think, it does not create, all it does is keeps everything going. Your subconscious mind is also the seat of the autonomic nervous system, which handles and regulates the exact balance of hundreds of chemicals in every single one of the hundreds of billions of cells in your body on a moment-by-moment basis. They say the subconscious mind makes 500 million commands a second. I mean, that's how fast it does. It basically keeps a chemical balance of every single cell in your body at a perfect level. People who say, you know, human beings just emerged out of the primordial muck as a result of a couple of chemical mixes and a couple of lightning strikes really need a checkup from the neck up. Because when you look at the incredible complexity of the human system, it's literally beyond belief. We are so complicated, and if one little thing was out, if one little feature was out in our eyes, none of us could see, either long distance or short distance. One little feature was out in our bloods, hearts, veins, anything else, we would not survive. And you take hundreds of thousands and millions of these little things that are so perfectly calibrated. Lots of research has been on us. It's a phenomenal thing. But anyway, is keep asking, your subconscious activity is subject to programming. It's sort of like if you program your computer, what do we say? GIGO stands for what? Garbage in, garbage out, but it also means good in, good out. So if you reprogram the commands going to your subconscious computer, you get new programming. That's why most programs, when they come off the production line, have what? Bugs and defects. And so what they do, the professionals go through, the engineers go through and they debug it. One of the things we need to do to fulfill our potential to have high self-confidence is to debug. And we need to go back through and take out all those little ideas and misconceptions and feelings and concepts and beliefs which are not consistent with being happy and joyous. They say the fruits of the Spirit are joy and self-control. And so if you're not feeling completely in control of your world and experiencing joy, it means there's something wrong with the computer. So what we do is we say, oh, must have gotten a bug in there, and we don't get upset about it. We say, where's that bug? And we just go to work. Sometimes just challenging one thought can transform your life. I'll give you a quick story. Once upon a time, there was a young guy, grew up in a family. His father was a Fortune 500 executive, extremely wealthy. This kid grew up, he had everything, he had servants, he had money, he had everything else. He grew up spoiled beyond belief. And his father was busy working and so on, but for one reason or another, he grew up and he was very spoiled. He was pushy, he was arrogant, he was rude toward the servants and toward other people. And the father realized he had raised a really spoiled, wastrel type kid because he never had to work for anything in his life. Well, the young man went off to college, completed college, reasonable grades, and then he came back and he said, okay, Dad, get me a job. Nice kid. So the father said, all right, I will get you a job. The father realized he made a mistake with his son, and he wasn't quite sure how to help him. But he got him a job with another Fortune 500 company, and the young man went to work, and after 18 months, the boss called him in and said, you're fired. We don't want you around here anymore. Your work is low level. You're not very competent. You're fired. Get out. Well, the young man was shattered. It's his first job. His friends have got jobs, friends working in large companies. He comes home, he's been fired. His father said, well, you know, I'll see if I can get you another job. So a couple of months goes by, his father gets him another job. He goes and he works for 18 months at this job. This time he works really hard because he's determined not to be fired. After 18 months, boss calls him in and says, you're fired. Get out of here. Get out, out. We don't want you around here. You're worthless, you're no good. The kid goes home, and this time he's in mid-20s. He's really upset and angry. His father says, well, let me see what I can do, I'll call around. And this time he gets him another job. 18 months later, he's fired for incompetence. He does this 4 times. And then the son discovers when he's about 28, 29. By this time, he's working hard. He's working long hours. He's working himself silly so he could do a great job, so he could really work up. And he's doing a great job. He's gotten better and better, more disciplined, more focused and everything else, but fired 4 times in a row from major companies. And then he finally finds out somebody lets him slip. And he said, well, why am I being fired? He said, well, that was the deal. He said, what do you mean deal? He said, well, the deal was, I told your father I would put you on for 18 months, and he agreed as long as I would fire you at the end of 18 months. He said, quite honestly, you've done a fantastic job here, one of the best people we've ever seen, but that was the deal. This young man went home, and he was so, now he's in his late 30s, he is so mad. He gets into a shouting contest with his father. He swears at him. He says, that's it. He said, I will never talk to you. I will never have anything to do with the rest of my life. He walks out, leaves, gets his own job this time with a Fortune 500 company, becomes a crack executive, moves up to a senior position. He's well paid, well respected. And at the age of 38, he's still mad. He's talking to his spouse or something else and what his father did all the way in his 20s. And his spouse, his wife said, honey, did you ever think that maybe your father loved you so much he was willing to put you through all of that, knowing you'd end up hating him? But he did that to make you the kind of man that you've become today. And it was just like a whack in the face. And suddenly the son realized, in all honesty, he was a jerk when he came out of school. And that now he was a successful, highly respected person, and it would never have happened in the absence of those experiences. So he went to his father, who's now 38 years old, father's about 60-something, went to his father and confronted him and said, is this true? And he said, yes. He said, I hated to do it. He said, but I realized I made a mistake in raising you, and I had to compensate for it. I had to make you the kind of person that you could be, and that would only happen with adversity. And so I was willing to lose you in order to save you. And they embraced, and they became the best of friends for the rest of their lives. True story, by the way, true story. So my point there was what he did is, from being angry to the age of 38, he changed his perspective and realized that what had happened was a good thing. What was happened was done out of love and not out of unkindness. My friend Wayne Dyer has this little one-liner. He said, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. The work at the University of Pennsylvania says basically that we see the world based on what is called our interpretive style. And your interpretive style is the way you interpret things to yourself. So if you change the way you interpret things to yourself, your attitude toward everything changes. So here's the seventh law, and the seventh law is the law of habit. And the law of habit says that whatever you do repeatedly over and over again becomes a new habit. So you can develop any emotional habit. You can develop an emotional habit of confidence, of optimism, of happiness, of joy, of positive expectancy. You can develop a mental habit by simply repeating certain things over and over again until you do it. I'm going to show you how to do that. So here's the bottom line. The bottom line, when you take all these habits together, all these mental principles together, is that you become what you think about most of the time. You become what you think about most of the time. Now, it's not what you think about fleetingly that passes through your mind, but it's what you think about most of the time. As Emerson said, a man is what he thinks about all day long. So the question is, what do you think about most of the time? And the rule is, if you change your thinking, you change your life. If you change your thinking, you change your life. And there is no other way. And this brings us to the greatest discovery of the 20th century, the discovery of the self-concept. I call this the master program. And each person has a self-concept. And this self-concept is a combination of all your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, doubts, hopes, fears, and experiences throughout your entire life that come together to make you the kind of person you are today. Now, we know that the only thing that is unique about you is your mind. Everything else the human being has in common with a horse or a monkey. The only thing that you have that makes you distinct and unique is your mind, and every single person is completely different because every single person has had hundreds of thousands of different experiences at different times to which they've responded and interpreted differently. So your mind is unique in all the world. There could not be two of you if there are 50 billion human beings. And what they discovered was the self-concept. And what we found is that your performance and your effectiveness is determined by your self-concept. How you perform and behave on the outside, how you treat other people, what you accomplish is all determined by your internal programming. So if I can give you a little bit of a graph here, here's a graph. We say that your level of effectiveness is determined by your self-concept. How effective you are as a person, as a salesperson, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a writer, whatever you do, your self-concept and your level of effectiveness have a one-to-one relationship. You've also heard it said that the average person uses only 10% of their potential. Well, this means that there's fully 90% of your potential left untapped. Some people only use a small part of their potential, but imagine that you could earn twice as much, 3 times as much, 5 times as much, just by using more of your potential. Well, according to the Stanford Brain Institute, that did some studies on this, actually cadaver studies, the average person really only uses about 2% of their potential. They're saving up the rest for some good purpose that we don't know yet. But the average person functions on 2%. 2% gets you the entire quality of your life that you have today. That means, by the way, average is 2%, some are less than that. Some use less than that. And what we do is we use it to get up in the morning, brush our teeth, go to work, go home, watch television, but we don't use it for very much. But let's just pretend and say we use 10% of our potential. That means that your self-concept is limited to only 10% as well. We also know that each person has a series of mini self-concepts. Now, you have a self-concept for every part of your life or work that you consider to be important. For example, you have a self-concept for every sport that you play. You have a self-concept for how well you sell. You have a self-concept for how you dress and for how much you weigh. You have a self-concept for your creative ability and your memory, your ability to tell stories, your sense of humor. You have a self-concept for your appearance. You have a self-concept for any kind of musical instrument or anything else you do. You have a self-concept for how much money you earn. What they have found is that every person has a self-concept which is like a thermostat. And this self-concept with regard to money, you never go more than 10% above or below your self-concept level of income. If you earn 10% or more above your self-concept level of income, you immediately go into what I call throwaway behaviors. You do everything possible to get rid of the money. You give it away, you spend it, you go out for dinner, you buy champagne, you order drinks for everybody at the bar. That's why if ever you win a prize or something, the very first thing you think of, let's go on a vacation, buy a motorhome, get some jewelry. And 68% of people who win the lottery are broke again within 3 years. They have more money than they've ever had in their life, but it takes them so far out of their self-concept that they go just like a rocket that goes off course and starts to spin, and they go crazy. So if you earn 10% or more below your self-concept level of income, you engage in what are called scrambling behaviors, and you scramble to get your income back up. But once you're into that 10% range, well, plus or minus, you relax. And this becomes your comfort zone. This becomes your comfort zone. And the great enemy of human success is the comfort zone. In this comfort zone, you're comfortable. Now, you may not be happy with the amount that you're earning, but you just become comfortable with that amount. The only way that you can increase your income is to change your self-concept in relationship to income. And what we know is that your overall self-concept is determined by your self-concept in all the areas of your life that you consider important. We also know this, is that your self-concept is made up of 3 parts. Again, this is basic behavioral psychology. Number 1, it's made up of your self-ideal. Now, your self-ideal, like 3 wedges of a pie, consists of your values, it consists of your ideals, it consists of your goals, it consists of your hopes, it consists of your dreams, it consists of all those things that are inside you. And what we know is that there's a direct relationship between how clear you are about your goals and ideals and your self-ideal. What do we know about top people? Top people are clear about what they believe in, and they don't compromise their values. What do we know about little people, weak people? Is they're very confused about their values, and they compromise them for the slightest advantage. So my point is that people with a very clear self-ideal are much stronger and more powerful people than people who are unclear about their ideals. The second part of your self-concept is called your self-image. And there's hundreds of books on self-image psychology, but basically what they say is your self-image is the way you see about yourself and the way you think about yourself. Your self-image is called your inner mirror. Whenever you go to do anything, you check this mirror like a stage performer checking the mirror before they go on the stage. Before you go in to see somebody in a sales call, you just kind of check your inner mirror to see, how do I perform in sales calls? And your performance on the outside is largely determined by your self-image. 1 to 1. Remember that ratio. The third part of your self-concept is your self-esteem. Now, your self-esteem is the most important part of all. This is the emotional part of your personality. This is what I call the nuclear reactor core. This is the energy source. This is the power in the human personality. Your level of self-esteem determines your level of vitality, energy, personality, sense of humor, creativity, personal strength, influence, persuasiveness, and so on. So your self-esteem is critical, and your self-esteem is defined as how much you like yourself. How much you like yourself is the measure of your self-esteem. How much you like yourself. Here's an interesting point, is whenever your self-esteem, your self-image, your personal performance is consistent with your self-ideal, the person that you would most like to be, your self-esteem goes up. Whenever you do anything that is consistent with the best person you could be, you feel happy, you feel proud, you have greater self-respect, you have more energy. Whenever you do something that's not like you blow up, you get mad, you swear, you do something that, that's not consistent with the best person you could be, your self-esteem takes a hit. But when you start to act in a way consistent with the best that you know, your self-esteem goes up. Well, here's the most important part, going down here, is we say that the most powerful words you'll ever learn are the words, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself. Whenever you say the words, I like myself, your overall self-concept goes up. your self-image improves and your self-ideal clarifies. And as your self-image, as your self-concept goes up, your performance and your behavior at every part of your life goes up as well. They say the flip side of self-esteem, like a coin, is called self-efficacy in psychology. And self-efficacy is how competent you are. So whenever you do something well, your self-esteem goes up and you like yourself more. And the more you like yourself, the better you do. And the better you do, the more you like yourself. And the more you like yourself, the better you do. And you get onto an upward spiral. So what we found is the most powerful words that you can use prior to any event of importance are the words, I like myself. Say it. Say, I like myself. Now say it like you mean. Say, I like myself. Now you notice the first time you say it, and I went through this many, many years ago, first time you say it, you may feel a little uncomfortable. Some of you didn't say it with too much enthusiasm. You know, you said it because everybody else was saying it, but you felt a little bit guilty, like undeserving. Like that's, you know, like a little bit, it's not quite right. Well, that's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal. What it means is somebody's programmed some kind of defect into your computer, a piece of negative information that's inconsistent with liking yourself. And what happens, it's called cognitive dissonance in psychology. The new message hits the old garbage and goes bang, like a bang, and it creates a stress. And the stress is felt like a feeling of discomfort.